Greetings from Redefined Church. I'm Joel Van Briggle, and I'm delighted you've chosen to be with us today. Redefined Church is a gathering of people from many different nations and various backgrounds who are exploring faith at the intersection of life, community, and mission. Our desire is that you sense that you belong. Whether you've been attending church for many years or you've never come to church before, we want you to know that you belong. If you'd like to speak with someone about furthering your journey and perhaps needing prayer, we want to connect with you. Drop us a message and we would love to connect with you to help you take next steps. You are also always welcome at our in-person gatherings at our Overijse campus and our Tervuren campus. Check our social media and website for all the details. We look forward to connecting with you. And now, today's message.
Coming up, this time that every student in school fears, at least here in Belgium, exam time, where they're being tested about the knowledge that they have gained this year, and it's all towards this goal of leaving school with a diploma, with a degree, with good grades that sets us up towards the future. Today we're starting a new series, Testing Time. Are you ready? And we're going to look at a series of tests that we see in the first chapter of James. See, as followers of Jesus, we also have this goal. We have this goal of becoming transformed into the image of Jesus. So that's God's plans for our life. And James writes to what he calls the 12 tribes in the dispersion, and he writes to Christians that have been scattered all over the world. They have been scattered because of persecution in Jerusalem. They are now living their lives in difficult circumstances, and he's writing them to encourage them. Yes, we're going towards tests, but those tests are designed to fulfill a specific goal. James is writing to those 12, what he calls the 12 tribes. It's really another way of saying the Christians that have been scattered. They've been scattered there because of persecution in Jerusalem. They had to flee Jerusalem, and now they're living everywhere, and they're telling their neighbors about Jesus. Remember that at this point, they are still living under Roman rule, under Roman laws, and the Christians are being seen as a sect. They are dissidents that cannot and will not conform to the rules of the Roman Empire, and because of that, the result is poverty and many hardships. And to these people, James writes his letter, and he starts like this. Consider it pure joy, my brethren and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking in anything. So James is telling his readers, we have to expect many trials. Now, my mother, she's with the Lord right now, but my mother at home, when she decorated the house, she had all these things in the toilet, and you have to imagine, don't imagine too much, but you're sitting on the toilet, and there was a wall right in front of you, and there she had these little things. And one of them was a tile. You know, it's something that we do in Holland, a little tile with a little saying on there. And the saying said this: God has not promised us a calm journey, but he did promise us a safe arrival. And see, our path as a follower of Jesus is never simple. James is writing to people that are scattered in a dispersion. They are scattered all around the world. They had to leave their homes. They're living in really difficult situations. But we have to realize that because we are God's scattered people, but we're not God's sheltered people. And so James is telling his readers, expect trials, expect testings. We cannot expect that everything will always go according to our way. We are facing trials because they are part of our life. But the question is always, how are we going to deal with them? So James tells us to expect trials. He does not write, if you face various testings. In other words, maybe sometimes there will be something. No, he says, when. It's a guaranteed. It's guaranteed that testings will come, trials will come, when you face all kinds of testings. And these testings could be anything. And James is very realistic in his writing. When he writes about various testings, the word that he uses in Greek is much more vivid than the word that we use in English, various. The word means multicolored, very variegated. It means it became to be used as diversified, complex, intricate. And James is really placing an emphasis on this word various, telling us that we have to expect trials, no matter what form they take. So he says that we have to expect trials and that they can come in all kinds of forms. When James says, when you face many trials, that word face is the same word that was used in the story of the Good Samaritan. Remember the story. There was this man, he's walking from Jerusalem to Jericho, and then suddenly he comes face to face with a band of robbers. He is not expecting it. He is not ready for it. It just happened. And what James is telling us here is that any day, at any time, some experience of trial is as it were lying in wait, ready to leap on us. And we can cry out, what is this? Why is this happening to us? But the reality is that God has a plan. In trials, in testings, our faith is being tested. Now, when I started to date my wife, I told her, I love you. And that was all very nice. And it is all very easy. At that time to say, I love you. But now, 15 years later, that statement has been tested. Things came up. Things were said. Things were done that tested the genuineness of my statement, I love you. And those statements, sometimes they're so easy to say, but they mean nothing if they have not been tested. There's this famous, almost famous now YouTube video from a physics professor called Walter Lewin. And he is a very expressive teacher, and he's teaching about the law of physics, and he has this pendulum. And he shows it's a pendulum. It's basically a ball that weighs 15 kilos and it hangs on a string in his classroom. And he shows the force that is happening in this pendulum. He actually shows that he puts it up and he moves it away with some extra force, and it breaks a window. And what he does then, because he believes, he has the law of physics, that if you have an object and you let it go, it will never go farther than the point where you let it go from. So he then proves this statement, the statement that he believes is true. He then proves it by standing against the wall, putting that ball, it's almost like a wrecking ball, to his chin, and then he lets go. And when you see that ball go, because it had just broken a window, he has just explained that if this doesn't go right, it will break his face. And he's standing there, no way of escape, his head against the wall, and that ball is flying. And you can see that you can hear the silence in that classroom when that ball is coming back. And the ball is getting closer, and it's getting closer, and it's getting closer, until it just stops just before his chin. And then you hear the sigh of relief in the classroom. See, this professor believed in what he was teaching, and he was willing to put it to the test. And that is the same that is happening with us when we face many trials. It's easy to say, I believe. It's easy to say, I believe that Jesus is my Lord and Savior. It's easy to say that I believe that God is my Father. But those words are meaningless if they are not being tested. So, tests will come. Trials will come. And sometimes we don't understand why. But do we still believe in the storm? Do we still believe when God is silent and there seems to be no answer? Do we still believe? See, the testing of our faith shows the genuineness of our faith. Now, there's one thing that we should always remember, is that God always tests us to bring out our best. Satan tempts us to bring out our worst, but God always tests us to bring out our best. And then James says this incredible thing. He says, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Other translations have it as steadfastness, of endurance. And this word that James is using there is a very active word. It speaks about active steadfastness, active endurance, and not some passive submission to a circumstance. It's a word that means staying power, strong consistency, endurance, stickability. It means holding on in the storm. You know, there's this story, I don't know if it's true, but it's about a pilot in a small commercial flight, and they're flying, and suddenly there's an alarm going off, and it says there's a door open. So the pilot goes, the second pilot keeps flying. The pilot goes and goes and checks out that door. And when he's close to the door, he's trying to see if the door is not locked. Something happens, he stumbles, he falls against the door flies open, and he falls out. Of course, now everybody sees that something bad has happened. So, you know, the second pilot, they puts out a mayday, explains what is happening. They're finding the closest airport. He lands, and they're all expecting this pilot to be gone. But to their great surprise, they see that somehow that pilot was able to grab a ladder, and he was holding on with his hands They say that they had to pray down the hands, but he was holding on in the storm. And that's what James is talking about. Holding on when things get rough. Holding on when things seem impossible. Holding on. That's the word that James is talking about. Having endurance, perseverance, being steadfast. And then he says, but let that perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature or perfect and complete, not lacking in anything. Warren Wiersbe tells us that the only way the Lord can develop patience and character in our lives is through trials. Endurance cannot be attained by reading a book or listening to a sermon or even praying a prayer. We must go through the difficulties of life. We must go through circumstances where it seems to be impossible, so that our faith can be tested, be proven to be genuine, be proven to be true. The trials and testing, the trials and the testing, and the development of this steadfastness, that is not our goal. The goal will be that you will be mature or perfect, that you will be complete, not lacking in anything. The goal is that you will be like Jesus. It's this famous illustration, I think I've even used it before, of this silversmith. And he was asked, when do you know that the silver is pure? That whole process where they heat up the silver, the junk comes up, they scrape it away. And they was asking, how do you know? And the silversmith said, when my face is being reflected in the silver, then I know it's ready. And that's exactly what God is doing with you. When you go through these various trials, He is preparing you so that you will be like Jesus. See, all these tests and trials, they might look like stumbling blocks designed to make us fall, but they also can become stepping stones into His glory. What does the Apostle Paul write in Romans 8 verse 28? We know, he says, that in all things, all underlined, cursive, bold, in all things, God works for the good of those who love Him. See, we all will go through difficulties. It's a guarantee. It's a fact of life. But we know that the testing of our faith is towards a higher goal, to become like Jesus. And that is the reason why James starts his letter with this enormous confronting statement. Count it all joy when you face various trials. Sorry? Count it all joy. Are we some kind of masochists? Are we some kind of people that are enjoying pain and troubles? No. But we see that through those tests, through those trials, we are given the opportunity to grow and to become more and more like Jesus, to be more and more transformed into His likeness. And see, our outlook determines outcome. The way we look at things determines what is going to happen. And our attitude determines our actions. See, we can look at trials as an incredible nuisance. Or we can look at trials. It says, here, God, you are doing something in my life. You are testing me. You are helping me to become the person you want me to be. Whatever life throws at us, we can be confident that God is still in control. And we can use whatever God gives us, whatever comes our way, to grow closer to God. And that through our time and testings, we become the person that He wants us to be. It's testing time. Are you ready? Lord, we know we've all experienced difficulties in our lives. It is just a guarantee. But Father, help us to look at them the way you look at it. Help us to see that through it, we can become a better person. That through it, we will be transformed into your image. That through it, we will become mature, complete, and lacking in nothing. Lord, together with James, we want to be able to say, count it all joy. Because we know that you will never leave us, that you will never forsake us, but that you will guide us through the trials to become the person you want us to be. And Lord, that's why we can say, count it all joy.
Thank you so much for joining us here at Redefined Church. If you have any questions or want prayer, we encourage you to send us a private message. We would be happy to connect with you and to pray with you to help you in your faith journey. Make sure this week to get a hold of the Redefining Moments. You can find those on our website and on our Facebook page. It's a daily prayer and Bible reading guide designed to help you grow and in your walk with Jesus Christ. Make sure that you check out our website so that you can see everything that's happening and to be part of that here at Redefined Church. May God bless you, and we hope that you have an incredible week.